Hello, everyone, and welcome to GPTuesdays. What an incredible crowd we have here today, and incredible speakers we have to show you. And I'm just so grateful that we're able to explore the quantum and AI together. And I want to talk a little bit about what is GPTuesdays. So GPTuesdays is a weekly community where we bring together AI engineers, researchers, professionals, and entrepreneurs, and even students, so that we can all stay ahead of the AI wave together. Every single week, we make sure that we bring amazing presenters so that we can explore the new frontiers of quantum and AI, as well as workshops that we're now providing weekly for the most part, where we provide interactive and hands-on training for AI so that people can, around the world, learn how to use these tools themselves so that everyone can stay ahead of the AI wave. And how do we make this possible? Well, I want to introduce some of our sponsors. One of our sponsors is, of course, Miami-Dade College. Give it up for Miami-Dade College. Yes, incredible. They have a free education, so no student debt, and also they have AI courses, so if you're looking to learn more about AI, go ahead and go through the courses here. And I also want to talk a little bit about who's talking today, right? Yara and AbdulMalek, thank you so much for coming today and providing this amazing quantum education. Yara has been with GPTuesdays for quite some time as a community member and also helping as well. And she's just so incredible, really spreading quantum education here in Miami and also globally. She knows so many people around the world, incredibly gifted in terms of culture, et cetera, and really helping to spread quantum education. So let's give it up for Yara. And AbdulMalek, also amazing, incredible researcher, incredible also for hands-on applications as well in the quantum space. Coming here from Libya, and let's give it up for AbdulMalek. Yeah, they're both incredible people. So before I take too much of your time, how about we let them take it away? Yara?
Hello, this is my first time doing public speaking in a while, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm really determined to help make quantum computing more famous than Kim Kardashian for the sake of our national security. So anyway, my background is basically in global collaboration, so I've worked on international teams in the space and quantum industry. I do the hiring, I like hiring people smarter than me, and I've worked on interdisciplinary teams. So yeah, I'm usually like more of a shadow. I don't try to be in the spotlight. I try to help make the world a better place and then disappear, but he doesn't let me disappear. He likes being my best friend. So anyway, I'm an advisor as well for an international space mission. We have Sarah, who's an ambassador for Haiti here. Thank you so much, Sarah. And we have Larissa as well, an advisor. So I'm also the youngest professional associate of a International Economic Development Group. I've been for a few years now. It was founded by a former US diplomat who worked around the time of the space race. So there's always a race with different technologies. If it's not quantum technology, if it's not nuclear weapons, there's always going to be a new weapon out there, a new race out there. There's going to be new technical skills to learn. So what I did was, after speaking in different cybersecurity events and getting really good at cybersecurity years ago, I realized, okay, we're focusing on the technical skills of our defense capabilities, but what about what's being done as the United States affects a lot of countries around the world? We have a foreign policy that literally changes the lives of people. What's going on to teach people how to collaborate globally, including in conflict resolution, to prevent and mitigate conflicts, to save lives, and prevent the loss of life in the first place? So then I was awarded a scholarship to Johns Hopkins University. So Johns Hopkins, people know about it from like the coronavirus, but they also have one of the top diplomacy schools in the world. And also the gifted education program is recognized internationally, including with Saudi Arabia. So I got this scholarship and I talked about how I wanted education to, excuse me, I talk too much and I don't have water. Anyway, so I had this scholarship, and in my scholarship letter, I wrote about how like the education system of the U.S. should talk about conflict resolution, diplomacy, to mitigate, prevent conflict, not just on defense capabilities, right? To prevent the loss of life in the first place. Sorry? Everyone can hear me okay? Okay, thank you. So yeah, I was affected by war myself, so I wouldn't wish, I just have a personal interest as well, knowing the effects of that and how long-term that is, that I would not wish any more people, young and old, to be affected by that. So sometimes people see that I know quite a lot of high-profile people, if you see my Instagram, my LinkedIn. But actually, the reason I know different people is because of my work with refugees as well, work with children of disabled military veterans. So if you build a reputation and your actions are efficient, you tend to meet those kind of people, right? So technical skills are really important, I get it. And for quantum technologies, we are now in what's considered to be a quantum race. And a lot of people are focusing on the technical skills. How are we going to upskill American citizens to, if something were to happen, a global conflict, like, there's Q Day coming, how are we going to upskill them in technical abilities? But I made this diplomacy curriculum at Johns Hopkins University, and I taught people critical thinking skills, because again, Johns Hopkins is one of the top diplomacy schools. And then we realized through feedback from my professors that actually, even though the United States affects foreign policy, we don't have like a widespread diplomacy curriculum in the schools. So there was like a retired one at the time when I was making one. So I had this really awesome diplomacy curriculum. I had people look at it that were advising for different governments as well. And you can see on my LinkedIn and Instagram, and from being in this international economic development group, that I'm connected with a lot of different governments. So I was also hired by the Egyptian government. They picked me actually to do a cultural ambassador role. Some people know about my role that I'm being sponsored for. So different countries around the world, like they recognize that I understand different cultures. And the International Economic Development Group that was founded by a former diplomat, the US diplomat around the time of the space race, he always taught me that when he trained foreign service officers, he would talk about culture and conflict resolution. So it kind of alarms me sometimes when I realize, I hear things and I realize people aren't talking about how important culture is in conflict resolution. So obviously, for example, if you see on the news that maybe people think US could have a conflict with another country, if you really wanted to prevent the loss of life, why wouldn't you not only focus on technical skills and defense capabilities, but perhaps get kids and adults to learn the language, learn the culture of that country, that perhaps, if you think we're going to have a conflict with them, why not train people as well in conflict resolution? So those were some things I did. So AbdulMalek, of course, he's my best friend from Libya. And Libya was a part of my diplomacy curriculum as well. And I taught people that whenever there's a war, how to think about the information that both sides are exposed to. What's the psychological impact? So people were really blown away from my diplomacy curriculum. And then I got a lot of different roles. So I do work in the space and quantum industry. Some of those projects are confidential, so AbdulMalek will be talking about the technical aspects. So yeah, another thing that I did was I would go out to different communities, low-income immigrants, that they worked at, Grant knows about this. Grant knows about automating factories, right? So I would go up to low-income immigrants that worked at factories. And nobody was going up to them and saying, hey, like, guys, your job could be automated. You need to prepare for your job to be automated. And so there were factories, 100 people, then all of a sudden they go from 500 to like 20 people because of automation. And I would talk to those immigrants. A lot of them didn't speak English. So I studied for the certification exam up to HSK level 3 for Mandarin Chinese. And I also speak, I'm not perfect at Spanish, but Bad Bunny's rich and he doesn't speak correctly. So I speak enough Spanish where I also would go to immigrants that spoke Spanish. And I would say like, hey, this technology is coming. You need to prepare for it. And so I had a lot of roles, including trying to advocate for former foster youth. And then I realized to include people at the decision-making table, sometimes you have to really advocate. There's people who aren't interested in that unless you say an economic reason. So I realized like upskilling people in different technologies that would help them, that if they have something that you need, you can't ignore them anyway, even if you want to. So that's how I was able to advocate for former foster youth, because unfortunately the foster care system for decades has had outcomes that are not very good. So yeah, I do work in the space and quantum industry, and I've hired people as well. I've done hiring. So AbdulMalek is very talented from Libya. Eldridge Di Mello, he's Chief Technology Officer. I worked with him on a bunch of projects, and I advocated for him. I said, this guy is so smart, he needs to be an executive. And Eldridge still remembers me to this day if you reach out to him on LinkedIn. He's from the civil war in Angola, and I knew like this guy is so smart. And he worked on different space projects with me. I hired him, and now he's a Chief Technology Officer of a Brazilian space company, and he's been there for a while, and he's doing other things. So the fact of the matter is we can talk about technical skills all day, but we also need to think about the ethics, how to collaborate globally. And conflict resolution should be top of mind, because at a micro level, a macro level, if you guys are concerned about your jobs being automated, AI and whatever technologies out there, quantum technologies, it's never gonna automate conflict. So it's just not. You know, if you live with someone in a room for a few years, right? You know, or at a macro level, micro level, there's always gonna be a conflict. That person is not like a complete clone of you, right? So it's very smart in this day and age to think about conflict resolution, and also to pay attention to different cultures, how different cultures communicate in order to resolve conflict. So obviously I have many endorsements for different cultures, as I'm still in touch with the Egyptian government. And I have some partnerships in the United Arab Emirates at the moment, and AbdulMalek's, you know, been stuck with me the past few days. In a good way, right? We're best friends, okay. So yeah, I've worked on interdisciplinary teams, I've done hiring, and when you work on interdisciplinary teams and you're a project manager, you realize like you're always gonna have to upskill your employees in technical skills, but character and personality is a little bit harder to train. And so I've successfully like managed a lot of multicultural interdisciplinary teams. I also do the hiring for Space Kidz India. So Space Kidz India, you know, Sarah and Larissa know that our data is being sent to the president of India because it's an international space mission and involves a lot of countries. So yeah, so we are always talking and making a lot of big things happen with a variety of people and technical skills. But as you learn these technical skills, you need to think about the ways to collaborate globally and conflict resolution, because that's the smart thing to do. You can't automate it. And if there's not a quantum race, there's going to be some other type of race. So I'm really excited to you know, share that with you. And I can go on and on how I got my job in the space and quantum industry, but yeah. So AbdulMalek, he's my friend who's going to speak. He was one of the first in the Arab region to advocate for quantum computing. He's taught without electricity. So I've hired people like that, and we've done big stuff on confidential projects. So I'm really excited to introduce him. And he's also done a lot of confidential projects. So yeah, this is my friend who's going to teach you about the technical part, but I hope it, you know, hits the nail on the head that you have to think about the ethical part as well when you learn these technologies.
Yeah. Thank you, Yara, so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. If anyone goes back to the future, right? If you know what I mean, the movie, right? And he goes back in time, takes that car, meets me in Tripoli, Libya, and says, hey, listen, it was back in 2019, right? So if you tell me that you're having so many difficulties trying to learn what is quantum computing and trying to do it as a bachelor project, like final year project, I wouldn't have been believing, even if you show me the video, Grant, if you send me that, if you send me this video back in time in 2019, I would be saying, that's impossible, right? But the idea is, the secret of the title that we picked, right? I might be picked it, but it was based on what Yara's been saying. And I kid you not, we didn't have anything prepared together. Like, she worked on her own and I worked on my own, like each one in his speech. But the idea is, I picked, for the first time, I picked this word specifically. I usually say communications, future of technologies, developing quantum systems, and so on and so on and so on about the future. But when we talk about quantum AI and the future of connectivity, connectivity for the future, it's not devices, it's not just communications between your phone, servers, cloud. It is connectivity at its ultimate best. We mean cultures connected together. You can now, like this day, we're living in 2024, we're now living in 2030, right? 2024, you can communicate through virtual reality, right? This is happening today. So what is going to happen in the future? So that's why we picked the title Connectivity, because it's not just about technology, it's about cultures. That's why I'm here today, to send a message, maybe a technical message a little bit, right, to these mini nerds, but also we got a few things that are going with the economy and also how to get things with initiatives. Let me introduce you a little bit about myself. My journey with quantum didn't start just with academia. I graduated from college. As anybody knows, you try to look, you seek for something in the industry, right? So I worked with a few companies, like international telecom vendors, but I didn't last so long because I knew that this is not my thing. I need to do quantum, all right? By then, I was like a fresh graduate, 24, 25 years old. I got to know many entrepreneurs, so I was opened up to this whole new kind of landscape in my career, and that's like, they told me like, oh, you're talking about quantum, why don't you just, like, this is a business opportunity. So I started working on something that I didn't know what it means back then. I was like, am I gonna open like a research lab? And they were like, no, that's a business idea. You have to advocate it. You have to invest. Like, you have to talk to investors, right? So I started, co-founded the company Quanta-ly, and like we Quanta and Ly for Libya, right? It was like the most trivial name you could ever hear, but the experiences I had trying to talk to investors, technically and also not technically, right? Because when you talk to investors, I'm a 25-year-old talking about quantum in a country like Libya in a situation that I'm not even an expert in that subject, right? So it put me in the most uncomfortable period of my life. Till now, I'm still uncomfortable here on the stage, but this is what quantum is. That's the bottom. This is why I'm telling you about the story of that. Quantum is uncomfortable, and you have to get uncomfortable, and that's what yeah, it gets wacky, Kev, right? So, yeah. And the other organizations that I work with is OneQuantum. OneQuantum is an international organization that helps individuals become stars of their economies and their communities. The OneQuantum founder is actually Andre Koenig. He is based here in Miami, but he's all over the international landscape doing many quantum things. And yeah, and the last one, I'm one of the board members of QLibya. QLibya is associated with QWorld Association. It's an international organization or association that has many chapters in many countries. I believe more than 30 or 40 countries reaching out. Yeah, and I actually train in programming, in skills with these organizations. and I have a few certificates with them. As of the other side of life, I do ICT, right? And I am a certified engineer. I have many certificates in networking with a microtech company, right? So enough of me and more about quantum. So what are you guys here about? You are here to know about a little bit of telecommunications generations, and we're going to talk about how things are evolving till the era of 6G, and we're going to talk about a few things that deal with practicalities, quantum machine learning, and just a little bit of security, right? And then we're going to finally discuss like what is happening across the globe in terms of who's putting money out there, and just to know, just to have an idea what is happening outside, right? So along the years, right? Along the years, the generations of technology that make people connect together, it was always influenced by how to connect in the best ways and the most efficient ways to make it this simple. So back in the 80s, it was the first, what is known as the first telecommunication generation, right? It was only what is known analog voice calls, so that there are no text messages. And before that, there used to be communications. It was just by the first generation that the frequency spectrum, it has standards, this region should use these frequencies, and that region should use that frequency, right? And then by the mid of 90s, economies been presented by the second generation, which now we can set data, right, as zeros and ones. So there is a jump here from analog to digital. Now we can send text messages. And then the early 2000s came with 3G. Now we can have a little bit of browsing the internet, okay? But we still have kind of, I would say, basic kind of communications. But the big jump now comes with 4G communications. 4G communications came with the internet boom, not with the early 2000s, but when Twitter came along, Facebook, all of these social media platforms, YouTube is booming. So you now need something, you need a type of communication channels that supports that, right? And then the world that we live now with 5G generation, it's a whole another aspect in difference between the previous generations. Because from 0G to 4G, it was only about how we communicate, right? But with 5G, it was, for the first time, telecommunications was impacting industries, businesses. You see robots all over the place. You see autonomous vehicles. You see all of these UAVs, right? All of that is powered by 5G communications. All right, and if we're gonna take just a little bit what is happening for 5G, with the early 2010 and getting to the early 2020, so the International Telecommunication Union, they have sets of groups that they identify what are the needs for the humankind for the next 10 years, or like a certain period of time, right? So we need to have this. So back for 5G, it was we have machine-to-machine communications. So we need to access, or these machines needs to access some sort of special channel that is strictly dedicated for these machines. And we have sensors out there. So we have many endpoint in terms of like endpoint devices that are requesting not much of a bandwidth, but also a communication channel that exactly needs to be exactly meet the requirements of these devices. And we also know, as we know, that we need to have mobile or massive mobile broadband in terms of the megabits per second. So we have as theory as it gets, 10 gigabits per second, and we have up to 1 million devices per square kilometer, right? So that's the density of machines or devices. And we also have critical machines that require less than 1 millisecond of radio latency. And yeah, to make this more intuitive for you guys, so what's happening now for the first time, the communication network, it's not just a simple network. It's just hardware, but it's actually virtualized, right? So you have these broadband communications, you're running broadbands and virtual reality and so on. You have that, you need to slice some of the hardware to fit that certain application, right? And you have critical machine communications, and you also have sensors and so on, like you're having IoT devices. So you're actually slicing up the network in ways that you would have a very, how I'm going to put this in a way that you understand it strictly, that each application, each device has its exact requirements that it demands for the communication channel, but it doesn't exceed that, right? Because you want to make the hardware that you got, the resources that you got, more efficient and efficient and efficient, right? So I'm gonna skip that so I don't make them, we're already ahead of time. So anyways, there is something that is called radio, the radio network architecture. So the radio is basically like the access network that you connect to, right? Like it's your router at home. It's not the internet, it's just something that you connect to, right? So you see all of these telecommunications towers and so on. These are just access networks, okay? So for 5G, it was the main difference with 4G that we have few things that are happening in the radio network that we need to slice them, right? And differentiate them based on the application needs. So we have radio access network, real-time processors. These processors or these applications need to stick to the endpoint, to the access network. And the radio access network applications that are non-real-time, right? They don't require sensitivity with time. We can make this cloudified, like we can put them on the cloud. That's why there's like these days you might hear about something that's called cloud RAN and so on. RAN is like radio access network. So you have centralized unit and distributed unit. But also with the advancements of technologies, new applications every day, it's always about bottlenecks with telecommunications and requiring more. And believe me, maybe after 2-3 years from now, you will be having a little bit of difficulties of having just 1 gigabits per second, right? So it depends on what are the applications out there that are serving the community and its demands. So you have the number of devices grows exponentially. You have all types of devices connected to the network and various applications, all right? So how does the future look like? The future doesn't look just in the way we see it, but it's actually not just in 3D, but it's actually on the sky, on the ground, and also underground. So this is mainly the hardcore of future communications. You have low orbit satellites. You have massive, what is called as massive MIMO. We're going to talk about this in just in a little bit. You have, for the first time, UAVs sending you the signal to connect you to the network. Because sometimes during midday, right, Brickell is not that kind of a traffic jam. There are not much of people going around. But at night, it is the thing. People are out there, it's crowded, and you might notice during the night, it happened to me last night. I got a 5G connection, but it's basically serving me as as 3G. So this is what happens when you have fixed networks. So there are many things that are happening now, and solutions are being developed. So you have smart homes, and you have many things that deal with even communications deep down in the ocean, communications with, this is a new field that is happening now. It's called deep space communications, right? So there are many, many things happening, and you have this, this whole big network and a whole new different applications, or I would say different demands. So you see the difference now between 5G and 6G is that it's not just about having 10 gigabits per second. We need terabytes of per second. We need to have 10 million devices per square kilometer, right? And we need to have much better reliability. The air interference latency, or this the radio latency, must be just 100 microseconds or 0.1 milliseconds. So these are the graphs. I just want to give you a hint, why is it demanding for the future that you need new technologies to serve the future, right? So this is what AI comes to play. In a nutshell, you have something on the access network, right? You have applications in the access network. You have these millions of devices that need intelligent network to process the demands of these devices. And also you have intelligent head, or the brain of the network, that could actually maneuver things on the network in a very specific way without a human interaction. This is the most crucial thing about 6G communications. Networks don't just need AI algorithms, it needs devices making decisions on their own and changing, reconfiguring the whole network depending on what kind of requirements at the moment, right? So there is sensing, there is monitoring. Is there traffic? There is no traffic. Is it raining out there? It's not raining out there. So these kind of different scenarios is where AI could change the landscape of telecommunications. And this is actually happening, it's starting from 5G, okay? It's not something that is in the future, it's happening now. Okay, so why, in terms of hardware and software, so I believe most of you understand AI and how it revolutionizes the type of communications, right? But it's the idea of that you have telecommunications infrastructures, radio access network connected to many other small terminals that are also connected to other sensors and devices. So that's why in terms of hardware, there is also limitations that scientists and researchers have been always trying to improve is the antennas themselves. So each terminal of antennas, right? This is just an example to give you here. So you have these small dots. These are the I would say the materials that send type of forms, like waveform. It's like a wave, like a radio frequency wave, right? But it's exactly like the radio signal that you have on your car, but with higher and higher and higher frequency. Why higher frequencies? Because the higher the frequency, the higher bandwidth that you can have within the network, right? So you're sending away a signal. We're going to talk about this in the next slide. So what is happening, if there is an example at the moment, like one of the state-of-the-art antennas now, it's 256 by 256. So they call this as a MIMO system, multi-input, multi-output. You have different antennas, a different array of small terminals of conductors that send different beams. And that's very crucial because you have beams to specific devices that are just 2 feet away. There are beams that are targeting someone in the office, in that building. So that needs a different requirement of radiative power, right? So many things happening, not just in software, but also in hardware. just for the hint of it, channel coding, that means the signal that is transmitted, you want to compress as much as you can in terms of how many bits, how much information you could actually put and compress in just one cycle of that signal that you're sending, okay? I don't want to, please tell me if I'm making things complicated, but yeah. So like you have waveforms, signals, you need to code your zeros and bits of information on these. So you have things also like multiple access is just the multi-input, multi-output. Modulation is something that deals with, are you far from the terminal, or are you far from the antenna or not? Are you close? Are you far? If you're very close, I can minimize the power and maximize the speed. If you're very far from me, I can minimize the speed and transmit more power, okay? So these things, if you think about them, like signal processing is happening here. Very tough and powerful signal processing happening here, right? To the point that you need supercomputers if quantum computing is not available for 6G, okay? Modulation is the same thing. So yeah, what's happening with quantum? I know for sure that, how many of you like know a little bit about quantum? Just, wow. you know a lot. So, okay, a good thing I prepared a few slides to prepare you for quantum. So when you talk about quantum, people always talk quantum AI, quantum AI, quantum AI, quantum AI. It doesn't start with quantum computing. It starts with quantum information and where it actually, like the whole map. This map is very important. It's very important. It was, I had it one of these websites and I was like, this is the most critical slide I have ever given. Because, why it's very important? Because it puts you down what is quantum. So quantum is three things, right? You got sensing and like measuring things at a very molecular or like subatomical level, okay? And you got quantum computation, and you have different modalities, different types of quantum computers. And you also have quantum communications. You have these photons that you send from one side to another side, right? You guys had your chance. I'm going to talk to these guys, right? I should be two places at the same time, but you know. So anyways, this is quantum, right? So as you see, the slides are like short term, medium term, and long term. So what this means is that these are happening now and like available like to the level of commercialization at the moment, not with high level of commercialization, but you know what it means. It's out from the labs already, right? And technology, when it gets out of the lab, it reaches to the point that now there is innovation in technology, right? Making it getting the perfection out of it. And you have medium term, so this is what is happening at the moment with sensing on metrology, making or leveraging quantum phenomena to improve nowadays sensors, okay? And of course, for quantum computing, it's a long term and it's a long run that we need to have. So is quantum computing an option or a must, right? You might be like, after I giving you this pitch about we need something that is computationally massive for 6G networks. So here's the main difference. You got the bits and qubits, okay? So classically, bits are just a piece of information. Does anyone have any coin? Yeah. I think I lost it. Yara, you got any coin? Yeah. All you people are just... Yeah. That's a quantum coin. Yeah. So, superposition. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. So this quantum coin, it could be a bit or just a qubit, right? So usually bits are just like this information that I submit to a kind of a black box, right? We designed the black box, but it's not really black. It's just something that you put these information and instead of, how much is this, Kev? Quarter? Like, yeah, I still have to get to know your currency. So yeah, so if I put this quarter, so I was like, which one you say? It said, yeah, this heads and this is tails. So this box actually manipulates this information, right? So I got the information, I feed it to the box, and it manipulates them. With quantum, it's different. With quantum, you have this, and you send the instructions to manipulate that, right? So you send the instructions to actually, right? To make it rotate, and in that way, you have a new kind of a bizarre phenomena that classically you just flip it like zeros and ones, but now if it's actually a fixed thing, we can put it in between, right? So it's not just as saying as like two simultaneous states, it's having two probabilities at the same time, like I'm here and there at the same time, right? Not that it's like being here and there at the same time, but having certain probability in this way, certain probability in that way. And if you can scale this up, right? If you have one scale, like if you have 1 bit or like 1 qubit, you have 2 states. If you have 2 qubits, that means you have 4 states. 3, that means 2 to the power 3, and you get, you get it. Like if you have 4 qubits, that means 2 to the 4. If you have 5 qubits, 2 to the 5, 32, 46. So there is an exponential growth. Exponential growth in what? In representing the information that you can control, right? So that's very important. You have the information that, like you have the physical thing, right? And you submit that some kind of a signal, and now you can represent in that system. It is just few qubits, but is so enormous. I think it's the number that if you have 300, you know that. You know quantum if you know 300. Yeah, if you have 300 qubits, you would represent quantum states, or like the number of states that you can represent, right, that exceed the number of atoms in the whole universe. Yeah. So yeah. So anyways, what's the deal with that? So you have 3 things, mainly. You have something that is superposition, like 2 places at the same time. You have something that is called entanglement, right? Entanglement as of, I have 2 coins, and they're simultaneously in that black box, and there being both of qubits being in both cases. But if I measure one, I'm going to affect the other one, and it's simultaneously falls into a certain state. So that's entanglement. Many scientists, I believe, Kevin, was it Einstein who called it spooky action at a distance? Yeah. Was it? Yeah. Spooky action at a distance, okay? Imagine that. How people like 100 years ago talk about this, and today we're talking about implementing it. And it's not just implementing it. We're implementing it, and no one understands how it actually works. Like, there isn't any kind of equation that deals with what is like, is it energy? Is it, like, what is it? Is it magic? It could be. Yeah. It might be. So what kinds of, like, what you can do to control this qubit? You have something that is called Hadamard transformation. It's just, instead of being 0 or 1, you set it like 50% each. You have like something that is called X or not, or like white gate. They're basically rotating the state of the qubit along with the X-axis, along with the Y-axis. I think I don't know if I have, yeah, I think I have it. No, we don't have it. So anyways, yeah, the point here is mathematically, we can represent this as sphere, and that sphere has what's it called? It has a unit vector that moves along the surface. So think about the quantum state. You have a ball and you have a dot on the surface, and now you're maneuvering that dot on the sphere. Okay? It is as simple as that. But what is very tricky about this? There is something here that we cannot have classically. We can represent something called imaginary numbers. And what imaginary numbers allows you to do, allows you to have negative amplitudes, complex amplitudes. I don't want to get too complicated, but things that we couldn't actually represent classically. Why is this very important? Because if you have these things that we can represent, if you get these qubits together representing one quantum system, we can use something that is called as the third most important thing. For people that attended the IBM opening ceremony, Kev said it a lot. It's superposition, entanglement, and interference, right? So it's not just the exponential, numbers of having these significant amounts of data that you can represent, that you cannot do classically, but you can have these states and information interfere with each other in a way that it helps you solve the problem much quicker.
With that question, would you say that those imaginary numbers could be like the little rebels of creation that create the possibility for new states of existence and more expansion, not towards those things that are already a part of, but that new things that can be created out of the imagination?
Well, your conversation is high level, I can say that. But I gave you this notice. Imaginary numbers, for me, as a telecom engineer, I graduated and in microwave signals, we study the antennas and how they work. So in the derivation, how we derive the radiative power, we have something that is called imaginary power that is very close to that terminal of the antenna, which you cannot measure power. Imagine being so close to that antenna that you cannot measure power. But once you get just a little bit away from the antenna, you start to measure power. And how they represent that with something that is called imaginary numbers, which are basically the square root of -1, because there is nothing real. When you square it, you take -1 multiplied by -1, that's 1. -2 by -2, that's negative by negative is positive, right? So you have this something that is imaginary. For me, it wasn't just imaginary numbers that tricked me, but it was imaginary power next to the antennas. How is that even possible? And then we started doing derivations mathematically. You would have an imaginary terminal of that power, radiative power, that is just fascinating for me, actually. Anyways, how much do we guys need?
For the schedule, how much longer?
Oh, you got 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. Oh, wow.
I'm fine. Okay. So are we there yet? No, it's okay. Are we there yet? There are many companies. You have IBM working on kind of hardware. You have INQ, they're working specific hardware. They're working with atoms. You have Intel working with silicon. You have companies like Xanadu working with photonics. So different types of quantum hardware, right? Yeah, this is with exponential growth. And this is how quantum is different from classically interpreting the power of computing. So what are the applications of that? It's actually like many applications. You have simulating like new types of drugs and materials that we can use for healthcare.
We have 10 more minutes.
Okay, so we have many AI applications for that. Encryption, security, quantum computing will be affecting the encryption of nowadays. It will be powering quantum powering data centers. Financially, like the people in finance sector are talking about portfolio optimization and so on. You have things like as dealing with huge amounts of data that you need to model, you need to extract some information. You have people here in Miami, you have a lot of traffic. There's a route optimization future for between quantum and transportation. You should really check that out. So this is the future for telecommunications, that you have quantum devices, you have classical devices, and they are interconnected together, and there is seamless communication channels that have quantum channels being integrated with classical channels like at the same time, right? In terms of people that like to get out of today's session with something to start with, so you have all of these like big algorithms, big AI techniques that like telecommunications network actually leverage this. And you have the quantum landscape of either software or hardware, right? And in between, there is something called like quantum machine learning, right? So this is something that you might think about, that you have many types of data on the network that needs to be processed real time without any kind of delay. So you must have these hidden processing power in the telecommunications infrastructure that would actually provide what is known as clustering the data, estimating what? Estimating the number of users, estimating the channels, the resources that the telecommunication network need to define for each one of you, right? So a very, very, very quick thing, right? So how do you do that? So classically, there is something known as quantum machine learning is something that you have these data, and you need to connect these data, right, with each other with kind of layers, and you need to do so many multiplications so that you get a result, and that result you just estimate like what are the costs of that, and you just redo the whole thing, like multiply, multiply, multiply. But with quantum, we don't need multiplication, we have interference, right? So we can have our quantum bits, and we do our what we've seen from the previous slides, the operations that I told you about. You control these operations, and then you do entanglement between the qubits. So now you can control, like you can have these parameters that you have that control the state of the qubit, the rotations that you do with the qubit. You do that, and you do entanglement with these qubits. There is an interference that happens. You measure, you get the result, and you feed it back. You tweak the operations a little bit, and now you have a very well-developed machine learning model that fits the real-time processing demands. So many companies, very quickly, many companies are working on this. You have Ericsson. I think Ericsson are leading on that aspect. It's been many years that they have been discussing this. They have been discussing that we have some quantum computing going with a radio unit, and we have some quantum processors that are actually on the cloud, right? So this is like the main reason I told you about network slicing and what is cloudification. So also many, I'm not going to get into too much technical details, but many algorithms for you. This is a recorded session, right? You can take out one of these algorithms, look it up, many use cases out there. People are investigating and with real results, right? One thing about results, There are few studies that like with real data at the moment. Remember the last slide, since like I almost like ended up. So these parameters that you tweak, you would actually have that classically as well. One of the studies, they were studying the radiated power from your home router, right? They would like have this basic home setup, and they have this radiated power, right? And they measure the reflections, and they have one of the use cases for 6G, which is the telecom network itself senses the whole thing, right? And they compared the results, and they had 35,000 parameters that they had to train with deep neural networks classically, like a classical AI model, that actually performed just a little bit better than the quantum, like the quantum version of that, but with the quantum version having only 18 parameters. 35,000 parameters, 18 parameters. And we're not even dealing with a very good hardware for quantum nowadays, right? So yeah, that was with quantum and AI and computing. The future is also, sorry, Grant, I had to also touch on this because there's a huge aspect, a huge influence with quantum computing being that powerful on the security landscape. So you have two like scientists, and also you guys have the National Institute of Standards and Technology. You can just look that up. They announced the new algorithms for encryption. It was what is known as post-quantum cryptography, and you can also check what is known as quantum key distribution using quantum phenomena at the hardware level, like on the optical fiber infrastructure, and also on the, like many countries are developing some satellite, some kind of communication channels that are secured by quantum. So there will be in the future not just quantum pushing like the computational limits, but also having quantum against the quantum, right? So this is the future. You have many things connected all together, securing online transaction. You have healthcare records. All the things are connected with each other. You have something that is called quantum internet. Quantum internet is just basically many very good, well-connected quantum computers are actually in one network, so that you leverage the power of all of these nodes and perform what is called distributed computing, right? You leverage the resources that you have and perform these massive calculations, right? At the end, I want to speak about just one thing, economically what is happening. This is the research done. It's always been done by QLibya. They have like one of the greatest resources out there. So if we measure the global quantum efforts today, or there was actually like 3 or 4 months ago, I'm pretty sure that they reached more than that, like $40 billion as an estimate for governmental initiatives, right? And what's triggering for this, back in 2020 or 21, this was only like 23 billions, I guess. So it's almost like in just 2 years, the amount of that doubled. And you have Latin America, like big parts of Asia, Africa as well is actually starting to wake up. So the whole landscape, like the whole world is actually waking up. And I'm not sure if someone could not agree with me. I don't believe that in the history of mankind, something happened on a national level with economies and countries coming from a technology that affected societies to the point now you have governments moving towards we need to have an initiative that deals with these technologies. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I end up with this, like what I didn't just end up doing technical projects or reading about quantum. I was actually practicing what is the need for a nation to implement a quantum strategy. So I got this framework. I had the prestigious invitation by an organization called the Institute of Engineering and Technology, UK-based, and they requested that I submit something that deals with building an economy in Libya. So this is something in general. You can apply it on a national level. You can apply it on societal level, individual level, company level, Miami-Dade college level, whatever it is. You got to prepare the workforce and the environment. Then after you understand, like you have people understand the technology, you do technology transition, you have pilot projects that understand the bits and bytes of the technology now. So now you can define what your needs are, like in terms of what are the main industries that are impacted by the technology. And then once you get that right, now you know what rules and regulations you can have for these certain technologies. Because as you always know that you don't want to have big projects, big regulations, trying to be forming that all these long laws and so on something that you're not going to encounter in your whole life, right? You need something that deals with your society, because the regulations in the US are so much different than Europe, right? So each country has its own needs. So yeah, at the end, I would leave you with this. It's not, the future is not about certain industry. It's not about AI, blockchain, all of these big tech industries that are affecting lives nowadays. In the future, as I told you, there will be like a intelligent network serving for humanity and serving for our needs, making lives better, making more jobs in the market, if not making economies even better, because we're talking not just about having a luxurious life. I mean, we're talking about having something that is happening now. The future starts now. You can live it now. You can manifest it now. Think about it now. You guys want a real example of that? You guys have 5G communications. You have robots that are traveling across the street. You have autonomous cars moving down the streets. That was set by visionary people 15 years ago and 10 years ago. They got that. They built it. They didn't have the technology back then. AI wasn't it wasn't very mainstream. It wasn't applicable 15 years ago, but we have it today. It's not away, like 2030 is not far away. It's only like 5 years now. And yeah, imagine the pandemic was only 5 years. I'll leave you with that. Thank you. And if you have any questions, and yeah, I'll be happy to take. Patricia.
Here, I have a mic.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Malek. Great talk.
Thank you.
I'm more interested every time I talk to you about quantum. I think everyone is like, wow. But I'm also in health tech, and I've been in public health. And I have so many questions about how safe is this 6G, because I remember when we were gonna have 5G deployed in Europe, the European Union, made like a mess about it. And
I remember that, yeah.
Last week, I don't know if you know, but a peer review article was published on the increase of dementia because of light exposure during the night. So I'm thinking, like, if we are getting dementia and Alzheimer, from the age of 65 because of this light exposure, what's going to happen with 5G and 6G? Like, do we have any idea of where we are getting to? I mean, like...
Okay, I will give you... I understand 50% of the answer that I'm going to give you, but of course, in terms of these topics, sometimes I don't want to raise a hype. I just give you the current state of what is happening. For 5G communications, there are like, what is Patricia, for those that don't know, so these radiated, like the radiated power is just frequency, certain amounts of frequency, like high amounts of frequency, like the energy that should be like radiated is actually high, because once you get once you get these frequencies as high as it possibly could, right? Because if you have these, let me rephrase that. The radiated power from telecommunications tower, it depends on the bandwidth you need to have. For 5G, the frequency is high. That means the energy is actually high that is submitted. And that actually, for certain frequencies, it goes through our bodies. Not all of these frequencies. Some of it actually resonates with part of the body. So since, I think it's since 2018, 2019, especially with the pandemic that happened, things have been going on with 5G affecting the healthcare and so on. I followed that topic, not from the news, but also like academically, right? All the papers that I read, right? Disclaimer, I'm not a scientist in that aspect. All the papers that I read, they show few cases that might have been affected with the radiated frequency from telecommunications tower. But it's almost, from what I remember, the analysis that I did, it's almost, there isn't a real tangible case that it says this is from the radiated power, because you have to stay for, you have to be facing so much of radiated power with so much time, right? In terms of, yeah, tell me. Of course. So yeah, there are. Yeah, definitely. No, I'm with you. I told you, like, I followed the topic back in 2020, 21, 22. There are many studies that discusses this, right? So to be honest, I'm not really aware at the current status. Like, is there like a very strict research that actually found results, right? But I still do believe there are many things online. You can even find the, I'm not sure about the US, but the European Union actually had many resolutions around that. I'll look it up for you and contact you with that. But for 6G, it's not just with gigahertz, it's going with terahertz. It's much, much, much higher than that. Would our bodies resonate with that or be impacted with that? To be honest, I cannot give you that answer because I haven't looked it up. But I'm gonna look it up, definitely. That actually triggers me.
I don't think it's the body, it's the mind, because quantum is gonna do what we've been doing all the time. There's always been entanglement between humans, although
Yep, definitely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Regarding LLM simulation of quantum effects.
I couldn't.
LLM simulation of quantum, right? So they've gotten to like 2-qubit systems.
Large language models?
Sorry?
LLMs as large language models?
Yeah, large language models doing Monte Carlo simulations in the large language model to simulate quantum interactions, right? So they've gotten the systems to 2 qubits right now and potentially think they can scale it to 3. And they're saying that, they're seeing a lot of inference. But one of the questions I have is, you're saying by 2030, in 5 years, the cost of running an experiment right now in healthcare on quantum is, roughly around $120,000 a compute. And so I don't see the whole quantum internet in 5 years. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, the points that I was pointing at, the last slide, not with the framework, but what governments are actually paying now to try make things physically available now, right? that's what actually triggers you, because look how many years it took for the technological development, starting from the early, or let's say like the late 90s till the early 2000s, or the late 2000s, like maybe 2010. There was a whole landscape, right? And then you start with the years, like the technological advancements that happened just in the last 5 years, that is actually having all of these years, or maybe like 20, 30 years of technological breakthroughs in just these 5 or 4 years. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. That's why I told you, I'm not selling any hype. Things are happening. Researchers are trying to push forward with things. But I agree with you, I agree. Things are still now at a very low accurate and very weak hardware in terms of controlling qubits at the subatomical level. It is still something that is not well developed to become actually like we have a powerful quantum computer, right? None of these companies actually have that. But what you have at the moment is just tangible algorithms that are still being tested and primarily having results that we could do something big. Because if you have a noisy qubits, noisy quantum computers now, it may not take as 20 years, it could just take 1 year. It could take 10 years. We don't know the future. We don't know the future. But what I personally seen, right? I've been following this field for 6 years now. And as I told you, I mean, thank you very much for bringing this up, because it reminds me of the amounts of times I sat down with investors, and investors, who are like, they are the real ones who slap you on the face and hit you with reality, right? It was like, oh, you're talking about quantum. Okay, here's 10 billion, give me quantum. I was like, no, I don't have that, right? I've been there. I talked to the investors, and I've been, I don't want to say what they exactly said, but it was really something that, okay, I knew that it was back in 21, 2020, 22, that there is a lot of hype on this industry, but you need to take things at like rationally and just move on life, and just keeping it in mind. With the last example that I've given you, that we have robots now going on the streets. Maybe 10 years ago, we would say we need very powerful computing power to have that, AI algorithms. We don't have that, right? But things happen, and when things happen, and let me tell you, quantum will not eliminate classical. It is the classical advancements that happen to technologies nowadays that actually is improving the fabrication of quantum computing. I mean, but yeah, who knows? It's a very, very good question. Thank you very much.
Now, you did a good job of describing the different generations, right? So if I was in the era of 1G, I'd be thinking of maybe like 1-800 telephone numbers, setting up like a business around that. So if I'm in 2G, maybe I'm thinking like Jeff Bezos, I can start creating some sort of online, ordering like an Amazon. 3G, that's social media, right? So you're thinking, okay, on Facebook, let me try to figure a way to make money from like mobile marketing or things like that. 4G, there's a different business model for that, where you're doing videos, the YouTubes. And 5G, we're still kind of playing around with it, but there's like the metaverse, the omniverse, people playing around virtual reality, augmented reality. You mentioned the self-driving vehicles, autonomous. Yeah. So as 6G is coming up, so if somebody's thinking, okay, well, I know if I do HVAC, there's always going to be a data center, but what are the opportunities that are going to be unique to 6G and quantum specifically? I've heard all kinds of things like we're going to have the satellite-based communications, quantum encryption, but what would be like and I know it's still a work in development, but what would you kind of guess would be like the opportunities? I know there's AI and quantum-powered AI, but like, what do you think could be the business opportunities?
Please say teleportation, please say teleportation, please.
So, yeah, teleportation, yeah. So, I start with your last word, business. Business means people, right? Business means people. As an individual, you need to think like, oh, I need to invest in 6G, right? To be honest, I haven't thought about that question myself, but thank you so much. To think of business, you think of people. To think of people, you see what are the needs to make, like they have needs, so like I can provide these needs, right? And thank you very much. You raised a very good point that we have 5G communications now, but we're still trying to try things out, right? Like can we do this? Can we improve this? And this is the thing that I told you about. When technology hits like maturity, people start innovating in products, services, because they have a handy thing now. They play stuff with it. I mean, who would have thought 3 years ago, like they can do AI stuff, like website, you submit a text and there's a video of you speaking and so on, right? So no one could imagine that. But it's the fact that you need to surround yourself with the mindset of this is where it's going, and we're standing here. What is happening now? Like, what are the most emerging fields that we have? Tangible applications, right? Tangible applications happening right now that are affected by 5G, but could actually accelerate into much more innovative products. Maybe virtual reality, right? You can get a whole another idea, and by the time when 6G comes, doesn't necessarily 2030, it could be 2035, 2040, right? But when it comes, you have a very, I would say, strongly implemented a pipeline of developing products that humans not use on individual level, but on kind of societal level. Because if you can hit large amounts of, or like this big number of customer segmentations, you would have a successful business, I would guess. I'm not that big of a, I would say, investments analyst, right? I'm not sure where investments would go with quantum, because it could be hardware, it could be software. But for individuals who are trying to make use of the AI boom, for the quantum boom, right? No one, I'm pretty sure, and I'm 100%, nobody would have predicted that individuals knowing nothing about AI would be making use of AI, right? So, and no one was talking about this because it's something that happens on site, happens when when the technology is available, right? So yeah, it's an emerging field. I myself, as I told you, I hate saying things that are just illusionary. That's why you see all these slides are with references. You can check them out. I don't know, Grant, if you can share the slides or anything. You can check them out. There are papers out there, people testing real things. I mean, technologies that have been not just with telecom, with healthcare, with financial sector, with many industries. All right, so you have tangible things to start with. But yeah, it's a debatable question. But thank you so much, Hans. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
Amazing, amazing. Who here learned more about quantum today? Every hand's up. Amazing job, AbdulMalek and Yara. Amazing, amazing presentation. I want to thank everyone for coming. I think all of us learned a lot more about quantum today, and we're going to continue learning, and thank you so much. We'll share your presentation and your slides in our Telegram chat and in other forms of communication online. So I want to go ahead and just say thank you to everyone that was able to come, and I want to be able to share more with you about some of our upcoming events that are happening. Where in fact, in light of our mission to also spread AI education and everything involved, we also want to help spread education about quantum technology, quantum computing. And that's why on December 10th, we're going to be having the quantum computing seminar. at Miami-Dade College very soon. And we look forward to seeing all of you there. We'll send out the invites as well. And yeah, it's going to be from 9:30 in the morning until 4:30 p.m. And we're going to have great investors, et cetera. Yara, would you like to say something?
The speakers for the conference, they're here. Raise your hand.
Yeah, let's go. So yes, that'll be on December 10th. And also want to share some more upcoming events, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up and get to conversations. On Thursday, we have a online webinar. This is going to be with Polkadot and with big names like BitTensor and Origin Trail. We'll be doing that with Miami AI Hub as a partnership. So that'll be a really great event. So come on by online 6 to 8 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you there. This weekend we have this weekend we have Alexei Romanov on computer vision, from classification to computer generation. So if you want to learn more about that, swing on by here at the Miami AI Center in the morning from 11 to 2 p.m. And with that, let's go ahead and just get to know each other and have some great conversations after a quick conversation with Yara.
He was on the plane for 2 days to come here to Kevin's Miami Quanta Fest. So if people want to get a picture with him, I will
It's all right, it's all right.
Yeah, let's get a group picture, everyone. And again, thank you so much, AbdulMalek, for
Thank
coming
you very
all the
much
way
again.
from
It's,
Libya to give this amazing presentation.
It's such a very good,
Amazing, you know.
such a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
I appreciate it. Everyone come on up, let's take a group picture, and then we'll get to talking.
You guys are gonna have it there or?
We usually do it like right here.